computer turned off. I think maybe God was mad at me because I have been called to speak and have failed to do so. And I'd like to say, if there's anything I've noticed, if there's any true message that God has ever told me, is that there are no accidents. He is brutal on purpose, and it might not be to so much punish us as so much that we know how to punish ourselves because we are punishing ourselves. We are lost. These people have actually created the Matrix. I can no longer talk to some of my family members and friends, even those who are able to now remember the events of the past 3 years. Um, are docile. They're not worried. Some of them even think that, they're trying to depopulate the globe on purpose, but they don't want to do anything about it. They've taken on the ideology of billionaires and celebrities, and I guess they think they're all going to be rich so long as they just keep their nose down. But we've seen this before. Many times we've seen this before. God sent Hitler to the earth so that we would be angry enough to realize that there is a problem with humans and we're coming to a head. We are far too powerful to be this selfish and irresponsible. And so, he sent the most ridiculously disgusting clown that you could have ever imagined and set him in our path so that the world would have to deal with him. We would have no choice but to deal with these great evils. And he puts enough of the devil in you so you can know it when you see it. And also so that you're not a pussy when you actually need to do God's work. Now, a lot of people think that there should be some kind of civil war, which is absolutely retarded. We do not need a civil war. We do not need any violence of any kind. These people are highly incompetent, right? That is one of the dangers of hubris, is that you will be struck down by your own hubris. You'll be struck down by your own incompetence, and that is what these people have done. They're over-specialized and over-educated. That's what I call them, the over-educated. Those of us below a certain education level, or at least those of us who didn't, acquiesce to the whole education system, somehow managed to keep enough of our head to be aware that we are under threat of domination. And I'll remind you that these are the people who locked us in our houses over a disease that is, essentially it was a hyper advanced flu that affected almost none of us. They terrorized us. They separated us from our family. They attempted to kill God once and for all. And they told us to shut the fuck up. And America, I don't know about you, but I'm not that guy. I will never. God made me enough of a devil that I will, if I had to, yell at God, because I did for many, many years. But this is always coming. There's some good news in this is, at the very least, the kingdom of heaven might be upon us, because let's face it, we're going to space soon. So that's a literal prophecy come true. That's another thing. Have you, any of y'all realized that the government has announced aliens are real and nobody gives a shit? Like, nobody in my country cares that aliens are real and they've maybe been among us. Like, the Occam's razor of how the fuck humans did that just essentially changed to alien. Ancient Aliens guy. You are right. You're probably right. He's literally now one of the smartest scientists in the world, and history is going to remember Dino Matsutopoulos, or whatever his name is, to as probably a prophet of some kind. One day, people will paint pictures of that man, and others will replicate his hairstyle because of how right he was about the aliens, I guess. But anyway, if y'all are feeling cornered, anxious, angry, lonely, sad, and depressed, just worn down, just know God is doing that to you. He is calling you to action. And failure to meet that action will probably result in swift corrective action on the part of God. We are standing in what I would consider a utopia, the West. We have all the technology we may need to have too much food and too much time on our hands to, go on vacation, hit the gym and take selfies and do juice cleanses and, I don't know, fucking parkour. But we are a party to slavery to this day, to this moment. I am speaking to you on devices whose components were manufactured by children and slaves, and we do nothing. We hold ourselves to be moral, and we turn a blind eye to that shit. We are allowing our government to essentially just make crimes and make the world a shitty place in our name, despite the fact that all it would take for us to get rid of them is to just vote in somebody new. Just keep voting in people new. You vote in new people, they are more beholden to you than they are to their donors, right? It's harder to catch who's going to be the next guy when they can't pile that money on. And even if they do, 4 years later, we can pull them back out. We need to send messages, and those messages are, we are done. Okay? We need to free the captives, visit the sick, and live a righteous life in Allah's name. And as far as that is concerned, that is Democrats. So we need to save them. These are our countrymen. These are our family. Just because they were literally raised in a cult does not mean that you get to abandon them as Christians. Does not mean God has abandoned them. He has sacrificed them to call you to action. And so, either you can just watch as they mutilate their children and come to mutilate yours, sterilizing the mentally ill, like we've seen them do before. You can watch while they line their pockets with the prosperity of our nation, with the education of our children, with all the tools that should be ours that we could use to take this utopia and make the earth a paradise. But instead they've used them to hold the sword of fire and keep everybody out of Eden. You can look at history at any time and say that that's true, right? That God is calling you, and that this is exactly the right time. This is the promised land, because, since we've come out of the wild, we kept getting better, bigger, more. Our ancestors survived ice ages with rocks and leather. They walked from Africa to everywhere and have now arrived in our orbit and on the fucking moon. So I do not know what you think we should be doing, sitting around just printing out an infinite resource that is fucking imaginary, right? It's money is not worth the paper that it's printed on. And that is what we've chosen, been told to live our life. We're given debt. You're essentially given a cross to bear. Like, if you want to succeed, if you want to take part in the economy, you got to play ball. You got to finish school. That's going to cost you some debt. You know, you've got to buy a house. You got to go through a bank for some reason. You can't just get US dollars from like the government. You can't get your tax dollars that you've been paying for years. No, you got to pay like $500,000 so that you can live in a closet that's sort of close to Broadway. And this is not to be boring. We don't need to do this. We can make any country we want. Like, we've allowed our this asinine orthodoxy of corporatism to become dogma just because, like, you know, the billionaires were successful. Well, they learned how to cheat the system. That doesn't mean that capitalism is necessarily perfect. It is obviously not. It requires adjustment and management. You have to balance the budget. You can't just keep spending money. These people are incompetent. And the saddest part is that our country no longer seems to produce leaders. There's nobody that's really standing up. There are people who are standing up to speak, but nobody's actually coming up to take charge of anything. Everybody's still kind of cowardly. Everybody's still kind of, you know, let's see what happens. At least people are brave enough to speak. And I'm proud of those people who did. But we need to act. And it is very easy to do so. We can boycott everything. If we wanted to, we could get together and just save money by not spending a dime on any of their stupid shit. We could boycott a company every quarter until they get the message. You know, we'll just bankrupt a company every quarter. Hit them where it hurts, man. They're doing it to us. You know, interest rates, that doesn't affect really the rich people. They're just gonna have to spend more than they usually would, right? Generally they want to cut costs, sure, which is why we're in this predicament. Is that they've raised profits and cut costs so that they can keep the illusion of progress, you know, of growth, infinite growth. What a fucking joke. Anyway, America, I'm getting tired. I'm getting fed up. I need to walk. Calling all pilgrims. The apes are stirring. Are you ready to throw feces in the face of oppression? To piss blindly into the wind and sacrifice yourself on the altar of freedom? I am. I've always been ready. Space Monkey. Out.